Hi guys, it's Heinzie here. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're brand new to this channel, smash that red button. Super important to help us grow this awesome channel. Now, for those that didn't catch the Gridsy session, it was absolutely fantastic. It was actually the highlight, probably one of the most fun and enjoyable streams we've ever done. We had our boy SB Crumb join us from Capital Games, the maker, of course, the game we love, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Had a wonderful chat, a really cool Q&A session where we asked him, of course, about Conquest. We asked him about Relic 9 and the balance changes and many other questions. Also, a couple of questions from the people watching. We were recording it on Twitch live, and some of the guys in chat got to get a few questions in as well. So we had a ball, of course, with Crumb and also with Ranger and Grid. Guys, check the conversation out. It was absolutely fantastic. Let us know in the comments below what you guys think about what we discussed. And yeah, please hit up the subscribe button and hit up the thumbs up. Give us a thumbs up as well. Really helps. Enjoy, guys. A fantastic session.
Like, how did I become a community manager at Galaxy Heroes? I worked at I had a job in the industry previously, and I'll say how I got that job was pretty weird. I was a big guild leader in the game I was playing. I was helping people create, get from like the early game content to like the end game content of the game that we're playing on. It's World of Tanks, by the way, but doesn't really matter. And turns out a bunch of people in the guild I was with were all employees, and they were like farming ideas from me being like, okay, like how would you solve this problem with if you're trying to get someone to the end game content? And so eventually, like all of a sudden they're like, hey, do you want to come work for us? And I was like, sure. I've been playing this game for 300 hours a week or whatever, so sure, might as well get paid for it. And so that's got me in the industry. A lot of crazy stuff happened along the way. That studio, unfortunately, they moved away, and so I was looking for a new job. A bunch of people at that job were all playing Galaxy Heroes. They got me into playing that when I was over there, and I was like, hey, this game's pretty cool. I've been enjoying this for the last 6 months. See if they've got a job opening. Turns out they did. The rest is kind of history, right? So it's kind of it's like getting your foot in the door is the hard part of a lot of this industry. But once you're in, there's a lot of opportunities for you for sure. I think like probably the more traditional answer is like get into either customer support or QA, or a lot of people come up through the kind of like entry level positions and work their way up there. So there's like a lot of different really unique ways you can get in there, but just try and apply, try and put yourself out there, try and have a skill set that overlaps. I mean, the cool thing about the games industry is that it needs kind of like every skill set out there. Like you need someone, if you're in someone who does finance, game companies need someone who do finance, right? So if you're a lawyer, game companies need lawyers. So it's like there's a lot of like weird overlap where you wouldn't think that like, oh, my skill set maybe doesn't quite apply, but it totally does in a lot of cases. And you can make that case. I bet you can get someone going somewhere. So it's a pretty small industry. It's surprisingly small. See a lot of people, like I've only been in it for, well, I guess I've been in there for about 10 years or so in the gaming industry, and I already see a ton of people that I've known even over the course of this like 5-10 years that just like they pop up everywhere. It is the smallest, biggest industry in the world. It's kind of crazy. So, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, I definitely can't complain. My life is awesome, and I get to talk about Star Wars all day. So what's more to want?
Yeah, as I said, super jealous. It's Matt, it's fantastic. But I've got to ask, obviously you play the game like us, which is awesome. You're one of us.
Yep, absolutely.
So is there a favorite faction? Which one's your favorite faction in the game? Which one do you really enjoy playing, and which one do you enjoy mucking around with?
So I really love bounty hunters. Boba Fett's like my jam. This is my favorite character in Star Wars. Got lots of Boba Fett stuff all over my desk here. I like bounty hunters. They got the cool little payout mechanic and stuff. It's kind of its own little mini game involved. I really like them, but probably I think Sith right now is probably my favorite faction. Sith's got a lot of cool stuff going on. They hit hard, and I really enjoy them. So it's like bounty hunters, between bounty hunters and Sith, I'd say.
Yeah. No, I like it. They're two very good answers. I am a bounty hunter boy myself. I still think that the whole payout mechanic is probably one of the best ones in the game. It's a lot of fun aiming for those bounty pucks. I really enjoy that. And our boy Sweens would be pretty happy to hear that as well, Grid, wouldn't he? Not going to lie.
100%. He loves you. He absolutely loves
He
you.
does.
I actually just pledged my love to Boba for the rest of my life. Actually,
Wow, very nice.
Yeah, very bold move of me. But yeah, it was about a week ago. I was doing a GAC, and I needed Boba to kill Darth Revan, and he did an execute for about 200,000 and killed him.
Yep.
Oh.
And so I was
now
like,
your
all right,
soul's gone.
Boba, I love you for the rest of my life. So, it's gone.
Yeah, that's it.
Everyone will know. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm taken for the rest of forever. So that's a really fun faction.
I mean,
that is a
it's-
super fun faction.
I love them because, I mean, I've got a bit of dad bod Boba action going on here myself, so I could sort of pull that off as a cosplay. So
There
that's
you
a
go.
win, straight up. But
Halloween's coming right up. You're all set.
so what are you farming at the moment, Crumb? What are you working on? What teams are you working on in your own account? What are you looking at the moment?
So I went back through kind of some of the older GLs. I've gotten like one GL kind of every cycle for the most part. And so now, but I've kind of like only got Kylo, but I don't have Rey. So I'm kind of going back and working on those teams. I still need to finish off my Kenobi team. I'm not done there yet. So that's kind of my next big focus. But probably I think I might go back and get Rey, or I might get Sith Eternal Emperor next. I'm kind of like waffling between those two, having Jedi Master Luke, Kylo, and already, and being pretty close to Kenobi.
Nice one. Now, I need to ask, of course, we do partake in a quiet beverage here from time to time. Yeah, people might find that hard to believe. Is there an after hours drink that our boy SP Crumb is his go to after a long week managing the community?
Ooh, that's I love give me a good beer. There's a variety of beers I love. I don't necessarily love a specific one. I like lagers, I like IPAs, I like light beers, all kinds of stuff in general. So like depends on the day, right? Like if it's a nice hot day outside, nice like thin Pilsner or something feels great. But if I'm going the other direction though, and I'm ready to have some fun, it's probably rum and Coke. Like that is probably my signature.
Word.
I like
That's
it.
the first drink I ever had in my life.
Yeah,
The first one. It's classic. Yeah, rum and Coke. It's so good.
You know, it's easy. It's
so
keep
good.
it light.
It's so good. Bree, welcome. It's great to have you here. Poby's here as well. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Absolutely brilliant. When can we we'll ask our Cad. I don't know if we can go there, brother. That could be a bit of a... That could be one of those questions, mate, but we'll check it out later on. But we need to ask, man. It's been a while. We did get a bit of a hint a little while ago that we were going to get maybe another Crumb puzzle at some point soon. Is that still on the horizon? Are we getting close to another puzzle at some point, do you think?
Yeah, I'd say we're getting there. It's definitely on the horizon. I'll say that for sure. So I think I'm not gonna like throw the gauntlet down, but I think this one's gonna be the hardest one you've done yet by a long shot.
And if I may, just on a follow up with that, because I've done them a little bit. I don't have nearly the intelligence that some people have on solving them. But
I watched you get up to the electronics part, and it was a little bit of a struggle there, I think, for you. But you got pretty far along the way. It was great to see.
Yeah, they're super fun. I really enjoyed it, especially when you start seeing like, where's this language from? Then you're just Googling it, and you're like, that looks like it's from this random manual from like 20 years ago. Like, I'm curious if you like, how do you come up with those? Because I mean, those are your puzzles, right? Like, do you have a team that's helping you, or do you just sit there for a little bit and you're figuring out just the funnest, cool, interesting ways to make some of these puzzles? Because they're amazing. They're so
Thank you.
fun.
I appreciate that a lot. I'm so glad to hear that you enjoy them, and said watching people solve them is a ton of fun. I mean, I have said the multiple people who've assisted me on these things. It's not just my baby. I do kind of lead the charge and do a good chunk of it for certain ones. But there's definitely some folks I've tapped into to be like, hey, help me do something weird here. There's a couple guys at the studio who are really, really good at puzzles in general. They do lots of like the Microsoft puzzles, or a lot of the like, live puzzles. Like we did one a couple years ago at UC Davis that was put on by a big puzzle group. And he kind of like went around the whole campus that he invited me to, and it was absolutely fun. So there's some really skilled people internally, but I think, I'm kind of always just like looking around for like other weird things that I could do to kind of throw people off. Like ultimately what I want to do is make it so, and you probably saw a lot in this last puzzle, make it so it's like one person really can't solve it, right? I like breaking it up. There's different skill sets. Some guy who knows like electronics can help and dive into this last piece, but someone who knows, how to old video game manuals, like for example, has played those games.
Binary codes. Yeah.
Binary code. all sorts of weird stuff. That Piet code that you had to run, that was like an image that was actually a piece of code. All that
one
stuff
got me so bad. I was so excited. I was like, guys, this is this language, and look, it matches up. And they're like, no, it's from a manual. And I was like, oh. Okay. All right, never mind. Just move along.
I know where Crumb gets this stuff. If you watch his streams he's been doing for his charity streams, he puts us through the ringer with all these murder mysteries and stuff. Oh my god!
You love the Oberdin, whatever, man. Don't you bash on that.
I'm not complaining about it, but they're just like they're involved, folks. And I know, and as soon as I started playing these, hanging out with him and figuring the stuff, I'm not like. Now I get it. Now I know why Crumbs and I get it. I understand.
Crumbs and nut job. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I get it now.
It's funny.
It's fun. It's something I do in my free time. I try and keep I got a big whiteboard behind me. Luckily you can't see it. It's got all sorts of stuff on it that like I just every time I got an idea, sketch it out on the whiteboard. So we always do a little bet, like not for money, I think internally whenever we launch these puzzles, and it's funny, like I'm like how long it's going to take to solve them. And it's truly amazing how fast the community rips through these things. And it takes me, a month or two to kind of put these things together. And, it gets solved in, 6-8 hours at most sometimes. But this one, I'm telling you, multiple days. There's no way you're solving it day one. I'm throwing down the gauntlet. It's happening. Good luck.
You guys hear it, Puzzle Masters. You guys heard the challenge. It is here.
There you go, guys. Get your thinking caps ready. It sounds like you're going to need them, certainly. Before we go any further, of course, Crumb's channel, I've just put the link to his Twitch channel in there, of course. Laurie, I need to ask you a question, which off the cuff. Obviously, you did mention Oberdin a little while ago. When are you playing that next? Lorelei is a huge fan. She's out there in chat right now. Wants to know when you're going to be hitting the game back up again. Pretty soon.
Yes, we just finished up Oberdin last stream with me and Ranger. Finally got through that. We'll probably revisit it in a little bit, but for the most part it's done. If you check out the VODs, there's a VOD of us finishing it up. It's about last like 3 hours of that game. We blew through that thing super fast though. I was really impressed. Unfortunately Lorelei, it's over, but you can watch the stream. And AP was watching it the other day and he said he was really surprised by the ending. So if you haven't seen the ending for that game, definitely check it out. But yeah, anyways, what we do for there is just we raise money for charity. Obviously we have our big Capital Games charity stream in about 20 odd days from now on October 16th. Leading up to this year, I decided to just stream a bunch after work and try and raise as much money as we can. So I've been playing pretty much a different thing every episode besides Oberdin because people really got into it. Yeah. But Ranger can attest to, I just basically pull something out of the grab bag of Crumb's history of games and we play some weird stuff. So it's
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But I've got to get to the last warm-up question. These are only the warm-ups one, by the way, guys. So we still got some fun ones to come.
We got the good ones too.
We got the good ones yet. We're just warming up here. But as we know, worldwide, everyone. I'm obviously in Australia. You guys are in the US. Worldwide, COVID's hit us pretty hard over the last couple of years, guys. COVID's been certainly a huge challenge, and I'm sure it would be an even more enormous challenge for a game studio, which certainly quite reliant on communication daily in keeping the game running and obviously the maintenance and things with that. How challenging has it been during COVID over the last 2 years working at CG, and what have some of the staff had to deal with to get the job done? Because I can imagine it would have been extremely difficult.
Yeah, I think we've been really lucky. EA has a lot of infrastructure that we can tap into, and credit. As much as it's there's a lot of people able to do this stuff. Credit to that team in the lead up to us getting sent to work home. It was a massive pivot from the company to be able to enable us to do everything we do now, but just digitally. And they did that over the course of 3-4 days, set up every one of our networks and things so we could all work from home. And then they made the announcement, hey, by the way, this is happening. Everyone's working from home for the foreseeable future. So I will say that it's been a challenge switching, but for the most part, we actually haven't been too badly affected by it. People have had a lot worse experiences than we have. For the most part, a lot of our stuff was already online. We're already having to have Zoom calls with folks from other countries call in anyways. Now it's just much more of a formal, you better do it because that's the only way people are going to hear you. So it's a little bit more discipline, I would say, to make sure that we all do the right thing and get everyone in the right room together. But for the most part, we chat online and we do video calls, and that's honestly not that different than what we did when we had a studio. I do miss having a whiteboard that I could just like have everyone sit around and just like write stuff down. Clearly I love whiteboards. It's something I have an affinity for. So I missed that a bit, but overall it's been pretty good, like for the most part. People were sitting home playing mobile games, so it's a good time for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So do you still go into the office much at all, or is most of it all just digital now from home?
No, I haven't been back in the office since we all left. So
oh, really? Wow.
No one is in the studio right now.
Gotcha.
And I think that's going to be the case for the foreseeable future, for at least for a while. So
yeah.
We've definitely buckling in for the long haul for this one. But yeah, even if we do go back, like there's probably a lot of changes we have to do and things like that. So, and there's a team that is dedicated to working all this stuff out. So, and they've been giving us regular updates. So I could say that like we're in good hands, and things are going well. But I don't know when we're ever going to see each other's face again, which is sad. I love being in a room with people and, hanging out and having drinks together after work and stuff like that. You do miss out on the connections a bit, but we try and play games together after work as well. I organize Magic games with the studio. I organize some other stuff. Other people organize board game nights and stuff like that. So we've been trying to like replicate that a bit, to try and like stay connected with folks. I can't imagine starting new at a job and only working remote initially. Like at least I have a connection with a lot of folks to like already lean on. Whereas some people we've hired like in the last 6 months, like that's the only world they've ever known. So that's pretty intense.
Right.
Yeah, it would definitely be a different dynamic from what you've known and obviously worked with up until now. And it's the world's definitely adapting the best they can. It's pretty rough, but those are our warm up questions, guys. They're our warm up ones. Now we're going to get to more in depth game questions. So we're going to start off with these. I'm going to go first, then Grid's going to follow up. He's got a couple as well, so we're going to run through a few of these if you don't mind. And then Ranger, we're going to ask the chat out there if they've got any questions at the end, if they just want to throw a couple at us. But be prepared.
Yeah,
you might
we'll
hear
look at them.
If there's silly questions, you will hear
this. Don't
this.
ask them now because we're going to go by them. So just hang tight.
Yeah.
And then after these guys get done with their interview, then we'll say, hey, all right, now ask your questions, and then we'll look at them and pick a few that they want to answer. They want to ask and stuff.
Sounds
so
good. So look, I'm going to start off
in the chat.
I'm going to start off with the question that I'm sure that everyone wants to ask. Look, we have to start with this one.
Yes, I am the best gamer ever.
No, we're not talking about that, Ranger.
Okay, so we can skip right over that one.
Yeah, cool. No, because we don't.
20 questions out of the way.
We don't tell lies here, Ranger, so that's not right. Anyway, let's move right along. Okay, let's go. So look, we need to ask Crumb. There's certainly been a lot of discussion around Conquest over the last few weeks. So we need to start with that one. And there's been a lot of discontent with the community. There's been a lot of feedback, and not all of it has been positive. There's certainly been a lot of people that have haven't been a huge fan. They've made it it's a real challenge. It really is. But but we need to know, is CG aware of the players' feelings around Conquest at the moment? Are there going to be more changes in the future to make it a little bit more what I would call fun and less grindy? I think the earlier iterations were really, really fun, where we were doing crazy stuff with Ewoks, with, data discs, and they'd take like 200,000 turns and things like that. And look, I'm not going to lie, I actually really had a ball doing that. It was just fun and enjoyable, and it was great. It just feels a little bit more grindy to me now, and I know a lot of people feel the same. Is CG aware of people's feelings right now out there, or is this something that only we're talking about?
No, I think, first off, I like read and watch all the stuff that's out there from the community, right? So I escalate that to the team pretty regularly. I just finished up a report just before coming on this stream, as a matter of fact, on Conquest and a variety of different topics from the last 24 or the last 7 days. So it's definitely being surfaced to the team. And Conquest is an evolving, living thing, right? It's not going to stay like this forever. There's definitely changes coming to it. We're on the cadence right now of every 3 or so to change it up. So probably around Conquest 10, you'd see some more significant changes. But that being said, in between these, we definitely want to do as much as we can to change things up. And I know I've seen a lot of frustration around Conquest. I know it's a big issue for some folks, and it's going to keep evolving. We're going to keep taking shots at it to try and make it hit that right level between both of these things, because I do miss those days. I do, deployable cooldown systems and doing dumb stuff. Like there's some really I do enjoy it when the game makes you feel like you're breaking it a bit, right? Where you're getting one over on everybody. You're like, this shouldn't be this good. And that's what I really want to get back into Conquest, right? Like that kind of feeling of wow, yeah, no, I'm doing some crazy stuff here. This is great. So, yeah, expect more changes to come to Conquest for sure. Right now, we're on a pretty tight schedule because we wanted to make sure these 3 conquests happen in the same time frame as the original schedule, so we've condensed the timing for these ones. So there's not a lot of time in between them. That doesn't mean we don't have time during this whole 3 set of conquests to make a lot of changes. So it's definitely going to happen in the future, and we'll hopefully have a different experience for you guys set in around Conquest 10.
I like it. No, it sounds good. I think, Grid, you had a question as well, man. You were going to ask a question, if I'm right?
Yeah. And just on that Conquest note, one of my favorite memories was you'd get the deployable cooldown system with it was a potency one with Tarkin. And so every time that Tarkin used that special ability, he got 100% turn meter and stacked his potency. And you took as long as you could and then did one massive firepower at the end.
Just boop.
Yeah. I did an AoE. I think it was 38 million damage on the whole team. It was, wow. It's just so fun. I love it. Those are great memories. They absolutely are.
Yeah.
Yes. So Crumb, we got one here for you. So we've obviously gone through some recent changes with some very notable characters, JKL, Gas, Watt, Thrawn, so on and so forth, Vader. With some of these recent balance changes, could we expect more of some of this to come again in the future? Are we looking at potentially some other characters might have a sort of balancing or nerfing or buff, whatever you want to call it, a balancing sort of restructure to other characters' kits? Or I know you guys have said you tend to avoid that as much as possible, but is it something that's still kind of on the table to make sure or to possibly ensure and protect the investment of some GL tunes that these non-GLs can't beat them? Because that still exists in the game, right? You can still kind of see that sometimes these non-GL teams can beat some GL teams. Is that something that's possibly on the table in the future to have these tunes be rebalanced, or where do you guys kind of sit or think about that?
Yeah, I think where's it going to start there? I just lost my train of thought. That was great. The changes that are there's no current. Okay, one more time here. There we go. Sorry, I'm very tired today. There are currently no other slated changes coming to Galactic Legends at this time, right? Or to characters around them. Like the balances for the most part is okay. That being said, as you pointed out, we really don't like going back and having to change characters that are already released if we don't have to. So that was the point I was originally trying to make. Is if we cannot do that, we would really rather not, because it changes how people use those characters. Maybe how why they invested in them is so different, because you can invest in a character for one purpose or a completely different one, and how deeply you invest in it it can vary very differently, because this is not as valuable for me to go this way with it or not. So it's definitely something we're always looking at, and if we have to take action, we definitely will, but it's something we will avoid at all costs if possible. And currently, other than the stuff we've announced of things we're looking at, there's not a lot of other things that are slated to change in the future. So hopefully there'll be no future changes to older characters. But that being said, at some point, I'm sure it's going to happen again. There'll be something that we see that is not working the way it's supposed to, or not incentivizing, like we had something like Paper Zombie, where it's more worthwhile to have a lower tier version of a character. If we ever get into a situation like that, of course we're going to have to change that around, because it doesn't feel good to be punished to invest in a character and then to be like, oh, by the way, I shouldn't have done that, and there's no way to undo it. So currently not right now any changes, but again, always subject to change. We're always looking, we're always watching.
Yep. All right, perfect. Thank you.
That works. Look, I've got to ask something that, of course, is a little bit polarizing at the moment, and we need to talk about the introduction of Relic 9 coming up soon, Crumb. We know that that's on the horizon sooner rather than later, and we also need to ask about the current gear crunch. There is still a gear crunch in this game out there. It's still quite difficult, especially now at Gear 12, the earlier Gear 12 sort of levels. It's certainly getting a little bit tricky to get those characters relic that we desperately need for things like Galactic Legends these days. There's still issues with Kairos out there, which the drop rates are not ideal. There's issues, of course, with even newer players with Carbontes and things like that. Of course, the stun guns are still a problem. Things like that for a 5-year game now, there are these sorts of things that are still quite draining for all players, new and old. It's quite difficult now with Relic 9 on the horizon. And I'm going more around the aero magnifiers mainly because we know unless you're doing C-Pit, you're really struggling to get those. You're getting a few in Conquest, and that's about it. Are there any more plans to introduce a few more areas where aero magnifiers are going to be available, or is it just going to be Conquest? And what are we thinking about the gear grind overall at the moment? Because it is still a challenge, in my opinion, anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of things we're considering, and there's I know the gear crunch is something that obviously is first and foremost in a lot of people's minds, as it's something that you run into all the time. And to talk about how we're approaching the gear changes that we're considering is that we want to alter that ramp to the end game a bit, whereas people can catch up, right? Because we could, if we just gave everyone more stuff, actually the people at the top end can take better advantage of that, right? They do more things, they get better, the more efficient at territory battles, for example, right? So it's how do you catch people up to that system is part of it. The other part of it also is that everyone has this struggle as well. There is a layer of people that like core gear, and when I say core gear, I mean Carbontes, stun cuffs, that kind of thing. That everyone, no matter where you are in the life cycle of the game, it's difficult, right? There are moments where you're just like, even if you're at the top end, you're like, man, I still need more of these things. So that's another area to try and to focus on as well. But we need to kind of balance both those together of catching people up while also giving people more. And that's definitely going to be a struggle for us for sure. And again, I don't have anything to announce today. No silver bullet. I'm going to tell you this afternoon that says, hey, we're going to solve all these problems. I will say it's probably going to be a process. It's not going to be like character shards that are kind of one and done. It will be over the course of probably several phases and things like that we'll be working on. But again, it's something we're definitely aware of. We hear you guys. We're thinking about how we approach this problem, and we hope to have something to talk about soon or in the near future. We can say, here's what we're thinking, here's our process around it.
Good to know it's on the radar at least. Anyway, that's the thing
Absolutely
that
we're
never concerned about because it's not really something that is breached too often or asked about. So it's good to know that you're aware of it. And yeah, that would certainly make it a lot easier for all players to continue. It is a collection game, so it's certainly a fundamental component of what we need to do to play with our toys. It's probably the best way to put it, straight up.
Yeah, and that's the thing is getting more people to get to the fun and exciting parts of the game is definitely something we want to try and ramp people into sooner and make sure that when characters really matter at like a relic level, whereas maybe previously in the game, maybe even a couple years ago, right, when before relics, it's fine to be at G12. Things will be great. It's fine even a little bit below that. But at this point, a lot of characters really come into their own once you have them at that top tier, and you need that to compete in things like GAC, territory wars, the PvE elements of this game, right? Like you're not going to be able to solve a lot of problems right now with a squad that's all at G12. So how do we make that a better experience for players is definitely something we're looking at. Yeah. But there is that one hard part of how do you not make the gap much wider for folks, right? Because there are people who've joined this game in the last couple of years and they're behind the guy who's been here since the start. That guy who's been here since the start should have some value, but maybe the gap shouldn't be quite as wide and impossible to cross as, or for someone who comes in the game today, how do they get to the end game faster? How do we make sure that that's a better experience? Is definitely something we consider. The other hard part is that so many of these systems are nested within each other. And so changing one inherently changes another one. And there's a real challenge here to making sure we don't introduce more pinches off other stuff or more issues, right? Because we just tripled the amount of income that you got on one of these items, right? Well, then the rest of the ones become more valuable because you're getting to spots where you need more of those other items faster. So how do we make sure we do it in a way that's smart, that solves a lot of these interconnected pieces is a challenge for sure. And that's probably why we're going to take this one a little bit slower than say, hey, we're going to double all the, character shards like we did, previously.
Yep. No, fair enough. Grid, I think you got another one, brother. You got something?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
There has been the buzz. We have been excited. The community has been getting kind of ramped up and excited and amped about the the content creators versus the developers GAC. Do you have any more information that you guys can that you could share with us about that? Do we have just anything that you could share about it? Any more, kind of a time frame or some set of rules or anything of the sort about it?
Yeah, we're in the midst of working on that for I talked with Doja just this week about it a couple times, make sure we're on track for it. We're looking something in the next, I would say, month or so to try and get something together. We'll obviously be meeting up with you guys certainly soon to just kind of go over the structure, make sure you guys have time and stuff to take off work, because we want to make sure you guys can all participate, obviously, who we've invited. But so hopefully we'll have more to say. Hopefully the next couple of weeks we'll have some post about it and giving the exact date of when it's actually happening. And then once we've got it all on the same page as you guys. In terms of rules, I think we're pretty locked in on the rules. Everyone will get a maxed out account. They're going to be one person who's playing, one person who's assisting. They'll be kind of all in their own little room during the battle times, right? So you're not going to hear other people's strategies or whatnot, or potentially what they're trying to do. But then we'll all kind of get together, talk some trash, and then we'll go back out and we'll do 3 rounds. So right now, each of the rounds are set to 20 minutes. So you're going to have 20 minutes to attack maxed out accounts. So I think it's going to be... It's not going to be necessarily reflective of like who's the best at GAC. I don't think that's what this tournament is, because it's very different than the current GAC. There's going to be a lot of different considerations. And it's funny, like every person I've talked to have come to me and said like, oh, there's one way to solve this. Of course, it's going to be like this. Every person has given me a different answer of what that absolute answer has to be. So I'm really interested to see like the variety of strategies that are going to come out of this thing. Like, do you do like focus on slowdown teams? Because obviously if you go up against a squad that's going to take you the full 5 minutes, that's a real problem. You probably want to skip that. So I would imagine we're not going to probably clear the entire board in 20 minutes. I saw you just beat your GAC in 5 minutes there, but I think you're going to struggle a little bit with this. So I think it's there to be a good time, right? And so people are going to have the exact same account. They can move mods around, but they cannot like upgrade or add new stuff to it for the most part, right? So if it's going to be the skill of like choosing mods is a big part of the game. How you mod your teams for offense and defense, big deal. So we want to make sure we included that kind of level of skill set. But essentially, it's for the most part a level playing field. Everyone's kind of on the same page. And then said we'll do 3 rounds of that. We'll see who comes out on top of that round of 8 or that group of 8. I don't know if everyone is matchmaking is something we've been working on. I don't know if it's going to always match up a CG person with a content creator or something like that, or if a couple might get matched together as well. We'll have to see what happens, but we're going to try and record most of the battles. We'll let you guys post about it, show off your videos, show off like you guys getting set up for it or whatever. You guys can do whatever you want there. And then we'll try and put together like kind of like, I don't know, 5-10 minute highlight video of like that tells the story of like who won this whole thing, how did they get there, what was the drama, and all that is the hope at least. So it's gonna be a good time. It's said there's some people asking me like, oh, what's the reward? Which to be clear, no one internally, or no one who's a part of this thing is asking what the reward is. Everyone's like, no, I'm in it. I'm going to win. I don't care. It's all for the pride. And that's what it is for. But it's funny. There's a couple people, who've just like in the chat and whatnot being like, hey, what's the reward for GAC? It's like, it's bragging rights, man. What are you talking about? This is all about bragging rights. And people are asking, what's the future, after this first one a lot. And it's, we'd like to get this first one under our belts, make sure it happens, it works smoothly. We're going to do some test runs. We'll get you guys together and make sure it's all working soon. And then if it's working fine, who knows what we can do with it? There's a lot of opportunity out there afterwards. So hopefully we can do more of these if it's successful.
Sounds fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be really fun. I think that was a great idea. However you guys came about with it.
Destroy them, Grid.
What?
We have to kill them. We have to destroy them.
We must massacre them.
How much smack talk?
Our dominance.
How much smack talk's going to be allowed, Crumb? That's what I want to know. Like, is there going to be some serious smack talk? Like, I mean, like this is head to head. People that make the game versus those who think they can play it like Grid. So I'm kidding, brother. I'm joking. But how much smack talk's going to be allowed? Because seriously, I want to see some serious
there's got to be a
banter.
good amount of smack talk for sure. I mean, that's why I want to like, we'll set people off from their rooms during battles, and then we're gonna have like the 20 minutes of like review and then 20 minutes setup time. That's got to be all trash talking for sure. And we'll do some like interviews during that time as well, like pull people off to a room and have them talk some trash separately, and whatnot. So yeah, no, it'll be all in good fun though. It's a good ribbon, but I'm definitely gonna call some people out. Whoever I'm fighting, they're definitely going down for sure.
It better not be me, Crumb, because I'm going to come at you so hard.
I am, like if you scare me enough, I'm just gonna pull out the dev cheats and just one shot your team. So
I'll call it out. I'll roast you live on the stream. Like, see what he thinks there, folks.
It's official.
All of a sudden, your account got banned. It's weird. I don't know what happened. Just middle of a match, you just didn't finish. Weird.
It's official, guys. Crumb has a big red button. You've been stuffed from the
Everything's
start.
dodging. Why is this happening? I don't understand.
Galaxy of dodges. That's what it's going to be. Absolutely. Look, I want to move on to something else because we've had obviously a lot of different events lately. We've had some Galactic Legend events. We've had a lot of different events, but something that we haven't seen for a while, Crumb, is an epic confrontation or a legendary event. It's been quite a while since we've had any of those. Now, are they a thing of the past? Is that something that we'll see again at some point down the future with character releases, or is Conquest the main vehicle now, as well as these, these premium Galactic Legend events? Like, what's happening with the character release in future? Are we going to see many of those in future?
Yeah, definitely see more legendary events and epic confrontations in the future. It's definitely not off the table. I'll say for sure.
No, that's great. No, just curious. We're not going to go into specifics because we know we can't go there.
Yeah, I wish I could go into specifics here, but they're not the thing of the past. That is for sure.
Yeah, no, fair enough. No, that's good to know because I think we really enjoy those. I think they're still absolutely fantastic. So it's good to know. By far, the hardest event I've ever done was the Epic Confrontation. That took me like 8 hours to unlock gas back in the day. So, it was definitely one of the most difficult challenges I've had in this game. And, to have the opportunity to find a really, really tough task like that again in future, I'm looking forward to it at some point. I think it'd be a great challenge again. I really miss those. But, Grid, you want to talk ships, brother? You want to go down the roll of ships? You got a question about ships out there?
Of course I do. There was a pretty famous saying that you guys had, which was receiving a shipload of content. We're just looking if there's any further details on. Are we still expecting to receive further shiploads of content, or is the release of the Executor kind of what was meant by that? Like, are we still expecting more ships? Is there stuff still coming? Or is Executor what that was meant to be?
There's definitely still more ships coming too. It's not the end of the ships, that's for sure. Executor was it's kind of like the sort of like very top of the the leaderboard. It's going to be very strong for a long time, but those going to be other ships for sure. It's not the end of it.
That's good. I'm really glad to hear that. You guys do a great job of staying in tune with the community. I know that's something that's been spoken about for a little bit, of wanting some more ships on with this faction or with that faction or whatever it is. So I think that's great to hear. I'm glad to hear that.
Definitely try to fill out some more factions if we can, and got some more stuff planned. Don't worry, it's coming.
Yeah, sweet. All right.
I like it. Marquees. We've had a few this year, Crumb, but we haven't had as many as we had in previous years this year so far.
Well, the year's not over yet.
The year's not over yet. So we got more marquees coming pretty soon. Like, we haven't, really only had Bad Batch marquees this year. Who else have we had? I'm trying to think off the top of my head whether there been others. But
earlier we had, in the beginning of the year, we had, of course, Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan. We've had Amiga. Yeah, Bad Batch. So yeah, we had Amiga. Tick, Eco, Rika. We've had all them. There are more marquees probably coming later this year or early next year. We're going to expect some more because it has been a lot less this year.
Yeah, again, without giving a timeline for anything, I think you expect some more marquees in the not so distant future.
Okay,
whatever that phrase means to you.
Yep. No, cool. Just curious.
Soon TM.
Yeah, very much soon TM. But yeah, no, marquees are not. There's still. It's only the 9th month out of the year. We still got 3 months left. Maybe a couple more coming in the next 3 months.
Fair enough. Just curious. That's one for me. So Grid.
Yes. This is actually an interesting one. So, now the specific question is asking about basically how successful has the hyperdrive bundle been with newer players in mind. And could there be any like event dedicated towards bundles in the future, like a Kamina bundle for, gas events and, so on and so forth. But expounding that a little bit, I'm curious because you guys are in a very Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and not just Galaxy of Heroes, but this style of game it has a very unique sort of game style in my personal opinion, because it's not just like an RPG where it doesn't matter when you buy it, you just play the game at your own pace and you have a good fun time doing it. Mm-hmm. And it's not even like some other games where like there's a progression system and it's shorter. Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes has now been out for 5, almost 6 years, and when somebody who like myself has been playing for almost 6 years plays against, I'm not going to play against somebody who just started, but the progression system and where we're at in the game is drastically different. So I'm curious, from your standpoint, how have you seen, for example, the hyperdrive bundle been accepted for new players versus old players, and in general that progression system and how it varies so widely for Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes players?
Yeah, I think at a broad level, I think the hyperdrive bundle is it's very good for new players, and a lot of people engage with that because there's a lot of stuff for that one time thing. If you're looking to spend the $100 or whatever, there's no better way that you could spend money in Galaxy Heroes, especially if you're very new to the game. I think the amount of stuff it gives you is great. It really accelerates you up to getting into those events pretty smoothly. You have a lot of tools to get started right away, which a lot of people want to do, and I think that's awesome. I think we're always looking at different kinds of packs and bundles and whatnot, depending on what's coming out or what's previously been out there that may become important in the future. So I think we'll keep iterating on that stuff for sure. Whether there's going to be like a different like hyperdrive bundle in the future, like I don't know, honestly. But people are always talking about all sorts of different ideas for packs and bundles. But in general, for a new player, like we see a lot of folks, if they go that route, that they're fairly successful, they have a good time unlocking a lot of those new characters and enjoy the game for quite some time. So it seems to be successful. It seems people like it. But I'm not the numbers guy here, so I couldn't speak to like it sold X amount. Like I don't know. I don't know any of those things. No. They don't tell me that.
I think all of us here could say, I know for sure I can. If just like how you said, if you were planning on ever spending even a cumulative only $100 on the game, the hyperdrive bundle is bar none the best amount of money that you could spend on the game if you were to. I think we can all admit to that. And I remember at first it had kind of this weird sort of like rocky start, and people are like, oh, you can just buy your way to the top. And it's like, well, think about some of those people that are, for me, I don't need the hyperdrive bundle. I got all that stuff, right?
Like I got that bundle. When I saw that, I was like, give me that bundle. I want all that shark stuff. Get the hell out of here.
I got the gear and stuff like that, but it's, the way that somebody would react to it to someone else is totally different. I'm like, oh, that'd be nice to get all that gear. But other people are like, oh, great, I'm going to go straight to 85. I'm going to get all this energy. I'm going to get all of these tunes. I'm going to get all these events right away. It's, I think it's aged well, I think is a way that I personally would describe it. I think it's aged very well in helping people get introduced into the game and being like, oh, I didn't start it 5 years ago, so now I'm punished and I'm 14 years behind everybody in this game, that they have a way of at least kind of somewhat catching up and not taking as long as some of us have. So
yeah,
I think
it's definitely not accelerating you to the end game, which I think a lot of people were like, oh, you're just bypassing all this content. Like, no, it's setting you up to participate in that stuff, right?
Exactly.
Without the longer ramp up to it. And you're not getting a Galactic Legend day one after you get the hyperdrive bundle. Like there's still a long path to for the rest of the game for you to play after that point. So
100% it is. 100%. Look, I've got to ask, because we got to talk Galactic Legends, Crumb. We need to talk Galactic Legends. We need to go down that track.
Okay.
Now, I have them. A lot of us do. A lot of us don't. A lot of them are working towards them. But there's been this year, there's certainly been a release each quarter so far. So we've obviously had one in June, and then we've had one very recently, Lord Vader as well, and Kenobi, and we've had one each quarter. Now, my question to you is this going to be a common pattern? Is this going to be a common theme that, say, every quarter we're gonna probably see some sort of a large, epic, large-scale premium character release every quarter going forward, or is this just the timing at the moment where it's just fit into the schedule? I'm just curious as to whether we need to expect, or we should be expecting, that type of release cadence going forward or not.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily expect that. I think it's lined up that way in the last couple year here or so. But I don't think that's a hard and fast cadence that we're shooting for necessarily. But it could line up like that again in the future. It could not. I wouldn't like be expecting it on the dot to there be another Galactic Legend coming out, in the 3-month cadence frame like that. So it's a lot more flexible than that. I wouldn't say it's set in stone.
Cool. And another part to that as well, I need to ask, of course, because Kenobi is good, but better with Commander Tano. And then, of course, we got Lord Vader, which I've unlocked, and he's okay, but he's going to be a heck of a lot better when Maul's released, when we unlock him, in the next couple of conquests. Now, do you think this will be an emerging pattern where you're going to unlock a Galactic Legend, but it's not really going to be at its full peak until a supplementary character is released to really make it sing, is probably the best way to put it, because that's been, again, an emerging pattern over the last 2 Legends. Is this going to be an ongoing type feature, or is this just the way that kit's been released and the way that it's been structured for these 2? I'm wondering that myself.
I don't think that'll always be the case. Again, like I would leave us open up to changing up the formula occasionally. But and I think both Kenobi and Vader are very strong without their conquest counterparts to really make that team sing, as you said. I think they're very, very strong Galactic Legends. But having another sort of piece to that puzzle, I think helps us balance things a little bit easier and make sure that, like, if you're shooting for Kenobi, there's something to do after that as well. So I'd say it's probably something we'll do again in the future, but I wouldn't say, again, like that is the only way we'll do that going forward.
Okay, good to hear. I'm very happy to hear that myself. That's great, because I think a lot of people are quite disappointed. We know that Lord Vader specifically, there's just such a huge investment in requirements for the unlock of Lord Vader, and then obviously to have him sitting there not at his peak, still waiting for a month and a half or so to get Maul to actually make it the way that it should be in comparison to, say, Rey and Kylo, that were really strong out of the off the bat. I just find that certainly is frustrating a lot of people, and I think they've got reason to be frustrated, to be fair. In theory, would it have been better if the script was flipped? And what I mean by that is, would it have been better to have unlocked Maul first and then gone to Lord Vader later, so that when Lord Vader's unlocked, he's ready to go? I would have thought, in my mind, that would have made sense. Or is that just a structure thing as far as a cadence release?
No, I think what you're saying makes sense. It's something we talk about all the time. Like, how do we telegraph to players and what is the value of this thing long term, right? And when we set up with Lord Vader, we came out from the start saying, hey, Maul's the buddy here. You're going to want Maul just like you want Cat with Kenobi, right? We were pretty upfront about that being the thing. And once you see both the kits, you can see pretty clearly, of course they go together. These characters were designed in a way that they work very closely together. So I think it's a challenge to figure out if this is always going to be the case, or if this is not going to always be the case, just because we don't we have ideas for how this go out, but the balance of this game changes all the time. It's a living game. There's lots of stuff going on. So whether that means that we want to release a character earlier could be something important. I think trying to show off why would you go for this character from the start is something that we really need to do more of, and make sure that okay, when I get into this is what I'm getting out of it, right? And having Maul so far removed from the launch of Vader, it definitely feels a little weird. And it's definitely something I brought up to the team, being how do I communicate this on in a video on the forums that Vader's great, when the thing that really puts the cherry on top of the thing is still not done yet, right? And or not available to players. And it's a challenge for sure. So even just if it was just for a messaging standpoint, I'd love Maul to come out earlier, and so in the cycle. But sometimes, depending on when development happens for things, it's not always the case. But we definitely, something that I think about all the time, of how does the information flow to players in this game so that it makes sense long term for them. And it's definitely something we're trying to do differently in the future if we can.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah,
so just my experience with Lord Vader, I haven't unlocked him yet, but I've got Loki and I've got Thane on my side. Vader, but outside of Kenobi, wrecks the hell out of everything. Once you get his ultimate and you get the Empire team with him, he is unbelievably
Vader's
powerful.
Still very, very, as I said, both those characters are very strong.
They kick ass. However, when you face them with one another, it's like you need Maul and you need Snips, or Commander Ahsoka Tano. I mean, you got to have those characters, and it comes down to mods. They're a direct counter to each other, and they're balanced very well. So when you guys say, Lord Vader is, well, first of all, if you don't have his ultimate, it's a total different thing. I don't care what GL you have. You don't have his ultimate, they suck. They're not as good.
Yep.
But if we saw with Kenobi, even though he didn't have Cat, he was still extremely powerful. Lord Vader is the same way when they face one another, since they're the top of the meta. That's going to be the case. So you have to think about this in terms of who are you facing. If you have the ultimate Vader, he's going to kick the crap out of anything besides Kenobi. That's just a fact. All right. So, keep that in mind when you think about these ultimates and teams and stuff. I agree with everything I've said about Maul and stuff, but in things, but I mean, you have to keep things in context here.
No, absolutely.
So
and I probably should have been more specific, talking more down the track of Arena. I mean, I'm sitting here at the moment, and I've done the heavy investment. I'm just talking for me at the moment. I've done the heavy investment. I've gotten Lord Vader. I've thrown all the characters at it. I've got the requirements. I've got him up to Relic 8. I've got the ultimate on him now. He's still sitting on the bench, and I can't use him in Arena because I'm using Kenobi because he's more stable. That just, to me, just doesn't make sense. And this is just my own personal situation. I mean, everyone's different. But given the options, certainly I would love to have seen Maul released, had some fun with Maul, and then had Lord Vader, which just would have gone berserk. That would have made more sense to me.
Yeah, Lord Vader needs... I mean, you're not beating Kenobi with Cat. You're just not. I mean, that team is going to destroy you, right?
Yeah.
So once you get Maul, that's the direct counter, and then it comes down to your mods. But and you're not going to see a lot of Vaders, but I guarantee you, once you see Maul unlocked, and then you see that those Kenobi teams are going to have a run for their money with Maul in there.
I just would have thought that it would have been pretty disappointing, Crumb, to have not seen it sitting there in Arena after spending so much time and effort and resources in making a character like that. I thought you'd probably want to see it on the leaderboards, unless I'm mistaken. I'm just curious,
Well, I think we know that like the time for Lord Vader will come shortly. And to Ranger's point, I still think it's a very strong character. We don't want to, as I said, change the characters post-launch. Really want to avoid that if we can. So like when we saw, there's a lot of negativity around Vader's initial launch, we definitely were like, okay, well, let's doubly make sure we look at the data, and make sure that like it's performing where we expect it to and things like that. And so, it's a hard balance between making sure we're agile enough and acting on things when we need to and when they need to be happening in the moment, but also to let it like settle in the community for a bit and let people get their hands on it. I think said without the ultimate, Galactic Legends play very differently. So making sure you've got the Lord Vader ultimate together, I think was like, day one when people were saying, oh, this thing doesn't work very well. It's like, well, you don't have the ultimate yet, right? It's gonna act like all the rest of the GLs when you got them day one and you didn't have their ultimates yet, right? Like it's not, so we want to be tempered with that, but we also want to make sure that like when there is a clear problem that we do step in. So we definitely look at how much or how effective these characters are, in a variety of different modes from a data side of things. So, and we do want to see Vader at the top one day, and he'll get there for sure. And not every GL has to be the top of Arena, right? Like there are different uses for different GLs. SOKR, amazing in raids, right? Can do all sorts of crazy stuff. Just watching Grid's video about how to solo the Sith raid actually the other day, just trying to figure out how I could set that up for my guild. But like there's different values for them in different modes, and we're definitely going to keep pushing that. A character shouldn't be the best just in Arena, and that's why the only thing you should have them. Granted, that's where crystals come from, so that's the the top dog for a lot of folks, and having the thing that gets you to the top of Arena does matter a lot. But we still want to make sure the other modes have a character that is also one of the pinnacles out there, or something that you definitely want to use in different spots, right? So it not to say that like your judgment's wrong, but I think we want to make sure there's diversity up top there as best we can.
No, that's fair. No, absolutely. 100%. Thank you for answering that. That's great. I'm just really, really appreciate it. Sorry, Grid, you've got another one, brother? You got another?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We're curious about, there's a couple of questions. This one involves a couple of things, so I'll try and like sort of condense it, but basically it's about some additional content on some stuff that we've seen before. So like, or that we heard whispers of, like, are we still like potentially going to see relic abilities? Is there any possibility of like vehicles still coming to the game? Are there any like completing factions like for Imperial Remnants or like Tuskens, as humorous as that is? We all want to level up our Tuskens. But just like some of those like wrapped up, we heard whispers of like, are we going to finish these things, or are we still going to see these things in the game? So specifically like relic abilities and ships, that's the more important ones. But are some of these other factions going to get the little bow tied on them and wrapping them up in like a true 5-man team as well?
Sure. I think if there's a reason to go back to them, I think we've done better at this, as the game has progressed. But early on in the game, there were sometimes we created characters that didn't have a lot of like usefulness and functionality, but we wanted to create them because they were Star Wars characters. Tuskens being a good example here. It's like they've existed for a long time. There's no real spot for them. So how do we? It's not about just releasing one more character to make that team work, right? Like it's got to have there's got to be a reason why you would want to invest in Tuskens long term, and it's a very funny phrase to say when you say it out loud. Like it's going to take more than just a little bit, like adding a new character, right? There needs to be something that makes it valuable for these factions, and pretty quickly into the game's life cycle, we started realizing like, no, every team has to be a complete team and has to go and do something of value for your roster, right? It's a game about resource management. You're gonna use your resources towards stuff that gets you more resources down the line. There's a very like mathematical approach to solving this game, and things like Tuskens just not in that equation, right? They're just not part of it, and so is there a way we go back and solve some of those things we did in the past? Maybe there's a way we go back and visit those, but there's probably got to be a good reason for us to do so. If we come up with a good idea for like, oh, Tuskens are going to be awesome in some area of the game, and it makes sense for them to be there, then yeah, sure, we'll definitely figure out how do we make sure that's a full squad and go out there. But I wouldn't bet on that anytime soon for at least some of these characters that maybe you're hoping for, if it's Tuskens specifically. Relic abilities, vehicles is something that's it's challenging for us. It's not something we're really considering right at the moment. I think like there's a lot of other things we'd want to get to first. Ships. So we just about talked about ships earlier. There's a lot more that we need to do there. Relic abilities, though, is an interesting one. It's definitely something that's still being talked about. It's probably not going to be in the iteration we initially talked about years and years back. But there's still some opportunities there for sure for that to come in some different way to the game in the future. Not anytime soon, I think, but there's definitely still some opportunity there.
Okay. That's fun. Yeah, I remember talking about that. I floated around some ideas that this was years ago when we were first kind of talking about Relic and Relic abilities. It was funny how some of them almost came to fruition through now, like galactic challenges and galactic conquests. Like I remember talking with just some people in my guild, and they're like, what if for one of your characters, the Relic ability was basically a unique, not necessarily like an actual like used ability, but more of like a passive unique that reflected a certain percent of your damage that you took back to that enemy that applied it. And then so it was really funny when we wrap back around, years later, that Galactic Conquest, and then we have the damage reflector from Galactic Republic. I was like, hey, something like that. Maybe not necessarily an ability, but possibly like a passive unique or just something of that sort. I think it could be kind of fun, bring in another aspect of a character and their kit and how they all interact with one another. So glad to hear it's still possibly on the table, but not, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah,
definitely. Like we'll see in the future, but yeah, there's some cool opportunity there. So for sure.
I know Grid's got a question he's busting to ask, Crumb, if you don't mind. It's absolutely busting, and he can't help himself. He can't hold back any longer. He wants to ask about a certain Old Republic character that he loves and adores.
Wait, this wasn't on the list. What is this?
I know. I just had this sprung on me now, but it's a bit of a special question.
You can do the move along. You can do the move along if needed.
Okay, so yeah, Grid actually has actually begged me to ask this question. I hope you don't mind. I'm sorry, but Grid, mate, go and ask about it. Go on. I know you want to.
So one of the first games I ever fell in love in my life was KOTOR. A lot of people, I'm sure, are the same way, that have played Star Wars games, that have played RPGs. KOTOR always shows up at some point. So I was just curious, obviously, because we have no dates, we have no information about KOTOR apart from a remake is happening. I was talking with some people, and we thought it'd be an interesting idea if for a Galactic Legend, well, I guess kind of two-part. Could we potentially see KOTOR remake, I guess, content? If that's somewhere, maybe you guys have talked about like, hey, KOTOR's coming. Could we talk about that, in a couple of years when it comes to the game, or actually comes out? Could we get it in the game? And also what you would think about, just personally, because obviously you can't confirm anything, but personally, what would you think of move along instead of this cadence of releasing 2 Galactic Legends that kind of go against one another, what if in true fashion we use that neutral tag and we get 1 Galactic Legend, which is Revan Reborn? And then you still go down the 2 pass. You still go down the 2 pass of getting an ultimate, but there's a light side and a dark side ultimate. And you use 1 ultimate that transforms into a light side character, or 1 ultimate that transforms into a dark side character. And that's all you got.
Okay, that's interesting.
Like neutral character. And then in the, in true fashion with what Revan is, because canonly speaking, Revan is, we don't know, there's nothing about them. We don't know if it's a, man, woman, nothing. It's somebody that you play in a game. And so it kind of stay true to the character decides who Revan is. If he's light side, if he's dark side, then anyways, I just thought it was a super fun idea. If you're just like, I can't talk about it, let's just skip that one, I'll be like, cool. But I don't know. I was just kind of curious what you thought about some of that. KOTOR remake in general.
I mean, I love KOTOR. It's probably my favorite Star Wars game of all time. Like it's up there. It's hard to say. Maybe Dark Forces or something like that might be in there too. But I do love KOTOR. I think there's some interesting ideas in what you said there for sure. I think some people said in chat, it sounds like a coding nightmare. But I think we have a lot of cool stuff coming out in the Star Wars universe in the next couple of years here, right? Like we've got tons of TV shows, we've got tons of movies, video games being remade like KOTOR, and each of those are different opportunities for us to kind of like, jump on that bandwagon and say, yeah, we can go back to that era and do something like that, And so I wouldn't be surprised if there's more stuff that ties into what's going on in the larger Star Wars zeitgeist in the future. Whether that'll be KOTOR stuff, I think that's anyone's guess. I definitely don't know that for sure either way. I know there's a lot of people who love KOTOR in the studio. Like there's a lot of ex-BioWare folks. There's a lot of people who love it just as a game. And I know one of the guys, I can't remember who I was working with. I'm trying to remember which one. Doesn't matter anyways. But I was like walking by his screen one day at lunch and he was playing KOTOR, and he had it in the ultra. I mean, lots of people do that, but he had it in the ultra widescreen setup that you can get a mod for. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I've been meaning to get that mod set up because I got ultra wide as well. And he was like, oh yeah, I made this mod for KOTOR. This is the one that everyone uses. And so it's like, so cool. Oh, you're the guy who I downloaded off the website. Oh, okay, cool. That's
bastard.
So I guess you're into this too, then.
So you like KOTOR?
You're in. You're cool.
Did I tell you that what Carrie told me, Crumb? I don't know if I told you the story when we had her on when we were interviewing her like a year ago or something. Mm-hmm. She knows Darth Revan's my favorite character, and so she was talking about her time at CG, and she was telling me.
Oh, you can't see my background. It's the Darth Revan.
I've got the lightsaber. It's not. Yeah, it's back there. I've got it, and
I have a Revan costume.
Yeah, I have a Revan costume too. So I'm sitting there interviewing Carrie. She's like, Ranger, I got to tell you something. I'm like, oh no. And she's like, we'd been talking about when I was there about doing a true Revan. I'm like, I cannot believe you just told me that. She's like, so we put it on the back burner. I was like, oh my God. I literally stood up and got the hell out of there. I was like, really? Why would you say that, Carrie? She's like, the
story for KOTOR leaves a lot of that open right to the player. And it was definitely a challenge when we were making the first 2 Revans of like, how do we talk about these characters when you make them in a character creator from the start, right? Like and then your choice throughout the game can be to go one of these 2 directions, right? So how do we, or be the balanced version in the middle, right? The true Revan or whatever. Like, what does that look like? And as Carrie said, like there are a lot of ideas flying around and something maybe we'll revisit one day in the future. But
could have killed her.
It's such a cool story. I would be stoked if we could do more KOTOR stuff for sure.
Oh my
God. Love it.
Yeah, that's good enough for me.
That'll work for you. Yep. Sorry about that, Crumb.
Sorry to swing that one on you.
It's all good.
I thought you were going to say that's damn Mace. Somehow Ram Bam snuck some bullshit in here.
No. Throw Mace out the window just like he got thrown out in the films. I don't care.
When it comes to Mace, it's definitely No doubt. Anyway, moving right along. I've got one more question, and then we'll obviously then just see if there's any out there in chat ranges. So if you want to scan through, mate, and see if there's any good questions out there.
Through.
Good boy,
I've already
good boy.
got a
Thank you,
general
mate.
idea.
Thank you, brother.
What someone wants that people are asking about. So
I've
keep going.
got one more, and then the pressure will be off from me. We're gonna then we'll turn the griller off, and then we'll turn the heat down a bit. But I need to ask this one. There's certainly been a lot of reports out there of issues with the player base losing members over the last few months. There's been a few reports. We speak to a lot of different communities. Grid will attest to this, and I'm sure Ranger, you're aware as well. There's a lot of long-term 5-year players that are sort of just retiring, and there's a lot of them all at once. And a lot of it's been due to the changes, obviously the rebalances to characters, the conquest, which they're finding quite grindy as well, and Relic 9 on the horizon. A lot of people can't even get close to that, and it's frustrating a lot of people, and they're getting a bit burnt out now. Is there some positive stuff out there on the horizon? Just help us out here, Crumb. Give us something positive. I don't need specifics, but mate, give us some positivity to say, yeah, look, we're up and running. We hear you. Everything's going to be improved slightly for players. Hang in there with us. What is there anything out there that you can give us to give us some positivity going forward in this game? Because lately it's been a lot of a downhill slope for a lot of people, and I'm sure that they're struggling a bit with the game. A lot of people are. Not everyone. I'm loving it, but a lot of people are though, and they're asking that question.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to announce lots of good news today. Unfortunately, I don't have that in the cards, of course. But to what you just said, though, there is great stuff coming. Hang on there, guys. Like there gonna be some really cool things coming for you guys in the future. I wish I could say more, but you have to trust me, which is, I know, a hard thing to do sometimes. But there is good stuff coming. There's really exciting things. I wish I could speak more to them right now, but unfortunately, I can't.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. But
move along.
There we go. Straight up, it's getting this button's getting hammering today.
We hear you for sure.
Large radioactive leak, big leak.
I say True Revan is coming and Ranger will lose it.
Yeah, that's it. And
What
after
do you
that
mean?
question,
You and me both are going to do a dance. Are you kidding me?
and after that question,
I'd be done
Crumb,
for.
Crumb won't be coming back again. He's going to give me the ass after this one. It's been great to have you today, mate.
Yeah,
We've thrown him under the bus. He's gone stuff this Australian guy. We're not going to come back here again. What was I thinking? But Ranger, have there been any that you've seen out there in chat? I know a few people have thrown some questions out there.
So the one that I've seen the most, and let me put it to you, this guy. I'm going to put it to you like this. If you're asking about future content, I'm a tester. I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell you on my streams. We ain't answering a damn thing, and Crumb ain't answering a damn thing about future content. So if you say, when is this happening, or what new characters or new ships, that's just not in the cards, right? So
yeah, I can't announce anything today, unfortunately.
You can't announce anything. It'll be announced when it's announced. So if you're asking those kind of questions, you can't talk about it. So you're just wasting your time. So don't do that. I mean, it's just the nature of how things are. So there was a question that says, and I didn't catch the person to ask this. One, before we get to some of these harder questions here, I'm going to look for some more, but I saw two that I was really interested in. A fun one before we do that, Visions, that was asked. I got to tell you, I watched all of Visions.
Yeah.
I think it's sick. It is absolutely sick. Episode 1, 4, 5, and 9 were my favorites. And I'm an anime junkie. I've seen over 1,000 episodes or 1,000 animes in my future or in my lifetime. Probably more than that. I stopped counting one day after I got after 1,000. I was like, good God, I need a life. I'm serious. I mean, you talk about a anime, I can tell you the story, the characters.
I asked Ranger for recommendations on anime, and he gave me a list of 20 of them.
Only 20.
Not even like, let me get it. Let me figure this out. Let me think about it. Nope. Just straight from the hip. Had 20 on hand. No problem.
Only 20.
Yeah, well, that's when I stopped him.
Yeah, limited. Hang on. Okay.
Well, what I really had to think about was like, what
trying to write these
20?
all down. I just
yeah, I had to really think about because my list changes over time as some new ones have come out recently, and I know Crumb loves anime, so
no. He sent me a doc. There was no writing stuff down. He sent me the list immediately.
Yeah, I did, so I was
This
like,
is
here we go,
pre-prepared.
baby.
Okay.
Yeah, Attack on Titan is in my top 20, Lorelai. Attack on Titan. I've read the manga. I read a lot of manga too, and that's top 20. It's phenomenal.
I'm all about One Punch Man. That's my
One Punch
favorite.
Man's in the
One
top
Punch.
20. Yep. I've read the
Love
manga
that.
too on that. Oh my god, One Punch
I've not
Man's great.
watched that yet. I think that might be one of the ones I next dive into.
Oh please!
Yeah.
It's so
God, it's so
it's
good.
so
First
good.
season's amazing. Second season, they get a new studios, but bleh.
It's,
All right,
it's One Piece or One Punch Man. I don't know which one right now.
One Piece is a classic. You can't argue with that. There's a lot of one, but we're not here to talk about that. Visions.
Sorry,
I wanna-
Visions. Yes.
I know, Crumb, you
Visions.
got to episode 4. So before we get to you, and we'll get to some of these other questions, Heinz, have you seen Visions? You've got.
I've seen
some point of
episode
things?
1. As we had a chat.
What'd you think
before
of
we came
episode
on.
1?
I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm a huge fan of stuff like Kill Bill and stuff like that as well. Like that's one of my favorite movies where there's some beautiful anime effects in that as well. I am a bit of a fan. Visions episode 1, absolutely loved it. It had that really beautiful feel about it. Really. Just gritty. I love the grit in it. It was just fantastic, and I love seeing the droid in it. It was pretty funky. The sort of basket weave costume hat sort of thing going on. It was beautiful stuff. So no, thoroughly enjoyed it. But no, I'm actually sitting down with my boy Monkel. He's 11. It's 1:30 in the afternoon as we're recording this. When we're finished later on, guess what I'm going to go do? I'm going to go finish it off with him. We're going to binge watch the rest. So I am very, very keen to check it out. Very keen. But I think there's any more out there, Ranger, that you've seen?
Oh yeah, there's a few. So Crumb, the big one that I've been seeing in the chat, and I know you can talk about future stuff, but TW, I mean, what are your thoughts on TW, where it is currently, and your thoughts on TW? I mean, they're asking about future stuff. I know you can't talk about that, but anything on thoughts on, where you think TW is, and Territory Wars is a game that hasn't been, I've seen a lot of questions related to that. So if you want to talk about that in any sense, what are your thoughts? Go for it.
Yeah, Territory Wars is definitely a space we're looking into. I think we've talked about this on some previous streams. I can't remember where. I don't think it was an RSG stream. I can't remember where last time we were talking about it, but yeah,
It was
Territory
I think it was during the mini stream we talked about.
Maybe the mini stream we were talking about this. I feel like I talked to again recently to someone about this, but maybe it was on the Nev stream the other day. And yeah, Territory Wars is definitely something we want to look at. I think it's an old mode, so there's some concerns around. People are used to that. So how do we change things up without rocking the boat too much? Because there's some expectations around, like if these kind of rewards here, if all of a sudden we change it so there was a dramatic, change in your win-loss rate, you might get like, well, wait a second, and my rewards are all different now. It's going to feel like this thing you're used to is all of a sudden gone, and we definitely don't want to do that or change, right. I should say, maybe not gone. So it's a delicate thing for us. We want to do some stuff to make Territory Wars better, but we also want to respect the players. Know this mode like the back of their hand right now, and it's one of those things that guild leaders love and dread at the same time. Is like getting organized for Territory Wars. So I'd love to do more of the quality of life stuff there as well if we can in the future. But we'll have to see what comes out of things. But as I said, we're gonna solve all Territory Wars issues tomorrow, kind of thing. But we're definitely looking at it. It's in the cards for sure.
I mean, we have obviously light side and dark side TBs, right, which are vastly different. Would there be a common practice of leaving Territory Wars as it is and then doing a different type of territory battle completely that guilds can choose between instead of actually messing with the old one? Would that make more sense, and would that be more logistically achievable instead of messing with the old thing if there's certainly concerns with it? And I'm just throwing this idea out.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting take on it. I mean, I think we'd want to, there's some fundamental chunks of it that we'd want to change and update for all of it if we did anything to it. I don't know if it's worth to just add another layer to it on top of it, right? Maybe there's interest in that, but I think there's some probably more core functionality we'd want to address that would probably go across the board just to make the experience better than it is now, or more interesting. And especially at the top end now, there's a lot of people who've really kind of solved this, right? Like your roster is plenty big to deploy as many as you need, and it's not the case for a lot of guilds. It's only the people at the top end, but that gets pretty stale for them, where they're just like, I drop my squads like I do every time, same place, same location, and then that's kind of it, right? That's not exactly exciting either. So it'd be good, but I don't know if we would want to do like a separate layer on it. I think it's an interesting idea, at least to explore. So
yeah, cool. No, again, thank you for answering that. That's just one off the cuff. Anything else out there, Ranger, before we wind this up, mate, and we get into watching me struggle in GSE?
A couple quick ones. Fleet loadout. That's another question.
Oh, fleet loadouts. Yes.
That's a big
Yeah,
one I've seen in the chat.
definitely one we bring up quite frequently inside the studio. It's all about trying to find the right time where we have enough space to make that feature work properly. It's a little bit more complicated than just like copying the squad system, because there's the ship you have to bring in and the captain for it and all that stuff that has to be shown there as well. So it's a little bit more than just a copy paste job, which I know people would love us to do, but it's definitely something, especially when we brought up the new changes to the UI in the character collection screen and the ship collection screen. There was a lot of people being like, are we doing ship loadouts with this? Please do ship loadouts. And it just didn't quite make the cut this time around, but it's something we actively talk about constantly in the studio. So know that your voices have been heard on the ship loadouts for sure.
Cool.
It definitely is. I brought up the other day, and Crumb struck me violently when I did. So there you go.
it was a
And
love
then while I
pet. What are
was
you talking
down,
about?
Doja and the rest of the devs came over and just started kicking me. I was like, "You guys
Just a
know I'm an
swift,
special
very
forces. I'm going to
swift
kick you guys."
backhand.
To be
Yeah.
fair,
Yeah.
Ranger. To be fair, Ranger.
Batman backhand to Robin. I was like, "Oh, well, I know."
To be fair, Ranger, you probably deserved it. Let's be honest. You probably deserved it. Let's be clear.
Yeah,
You probably deserved it.
Someone brought up forum, another where you guys do those forum Q&As.
Yeah,
Are you guys planning on
Q&As,
doing anything more of those in the future? And I'm kind of like, do they need to? Because Crumb's everywhere. Goddamn, he's been on every damn channel there is. Do you need them anymore?
I think there's a me getting on streams definitely fills a lot of those needs as well. Just talking about like what's going on in the community, but I think there's still a need to have a lot more broader voices than just me. The cool thing about the Q&As is that I grab like a bunch of different people from different, disciplines from around the studio, and they could bring a lot of different perspectives together at once around a topic. And I don't think we get that all the time here. So I've talked to Doja again about this, and I know he's been working on something about how do we reinvigorate Q&As in the future. What's that?
Suggestion? Do a Q&A, pull questions like you did, but do it live on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll be the guy that scoops the questions for you guys or something. I'll volunteer for that.
I'll be comic relief.
Yeah,
I'll be the Australian idiot.
Yeah, that's kind of what we did before, just not live, right? Basically, like we'd all do it live. We'd sit everyone in a room, and we'd get everyone to. I'd give them the list of questions that were coming in from the forums and we got from the survey, and just sit in that room for that hour. And like when we were just in a forum thread. We weren't live previously, so.
One thing, I agree with that. I think, honestly, I think the beauty of that type of format that Ranger's talking about is that I think that we would actually get to see and know the people that do create the game. I think that's a really unique opportunity.
Agree.
I think that would be really cool
so that's where I think I'm
engage directly with those that make the game and are as passionate about it as we are. I think that would be a really cool dynamic to see.
Yeah, get the questions live,
and
then you can pick like each person to answer the question live, and the people can see them answer instead of, because I think you get something lost in translation when you write out, because we used to make fun of you guys because you guys would make mistakes and stuff and say the craziest stuff on some of those Q&As, and I would do the voices and stuff for it. But I think putting a human side to it would be really good for you guys, and I think it would go over 1,000% well with the community that see that. Hey, I'm asking a question live. This is a dev. Answer my question. This is someone from the art department.
Look at his hair. Behold.
I know, right?
I know. Grid's not talking about me when it comes to hair, but that's a whole different point. It's crazy.
And then last question we're going to do is. And this is just a fun one. I thought we'd do a fun one, and I thought this was a fun one. If there's a character who isn't in the game that you would like to see, and this is not as you as a developer or community manager or anything like that, Crumb. This is just what's one of your favorite characters you like to see in the game? You're a fan. You love
Chris's pick.
Yeah,
Chris's pick.
Yeah.
Just don't say Jar Jar.
Oh no! Come on! Look, we're all friends don't let friends pick Darth Jar Jar in this scenario. I mean, the one that I want more than other is Hondo. Right, like I know this is one that a lot of people like. Hondo is one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars. I think I fell in love with him the first time I saw him on screen, and he's been great. So I would love to see Hondo making the game. But in terms of other characters, just like that are out there, there's so many characters from Legends I'd love to see. that are probably not in the cards, but like there's a lot of cool stuff from the comic books and the other and just novels and stuff that would be really awesome that I wish we could bring in. But that's definitely a Chris request, not someone from Capital Games making that request.
Can I give you GAC Whisper? He's been up my butt about telling you, like, he's like, can we get what's his name from the games, from the what's his name, what's the guy with the 2 lightsabers that kicked the crap out of Vader?
Starkiller.
Starkiller.
Yep.
So that was one.
Starkiller.
Yeah, Starkiller was one that he really wants, and then mine would be Mara Jade. I always wanted to see Mara Jade in there.
Oh, interesting.
Starkiller and Mara Jade were the 2 that I was like, even if we're gonna go Legends, and then there's Darth Bane. I thought that would be cool with him and Zorana. Would be really cool to have in there. Of course, there's a whole bunch of stuff from the Old Republic that So
I was gonna say Darth Malgus and Satele Shan.
Oh yeah, Malgus and Mar and all them. Good God.
Yeah, even another unaligned force user, a bit of Cal Kestis action, something like that could be cool. That would be a good option. So, I think
the Celestials,
there's so much room. I mean, I think we know there's just thousands of different characters that could be brought into the game. It's just a case of which ones fit the bill and making something work with them. I think that's the trick, isn't it? Mitch Surik was another one thrown out there in chat. So, there's a few there. So, it's pretty cool. But, look, we're going to take the pressure off our boy Crumb. He's answered a lot of questions. Man, thanks so much for answering those. We're going to take the pressure off now.